Thank you, Paweł. This is Paweł. And today we will talk about the topic will be how to win a Kaggle competition and become a Grandmaster. So I hope that you all are Kaggle fans and that you will enjoy this presentation. But before this, I'd like to tell you a couple of things which might be interesting for you. First of all, I will tell the story of Kaggle Days and Kaggle Days Meetup, because the story is longer than a couple of sentences. There will be a competition. If you like this T-shirt, original Kaggle T-shirt, there will be a chance to win one, or maybe a couple of them. Paweł then will share some tips and tricks regarding Kaggle competition, because he won a lot of them, but he will tell you it himself. Then we'll have question and answer session, and you will have opportunity to ask him questions. And what else? Then we'll reveal winners of the competition, and then we'll have pizza. So we organize something to eat and to network on, right? And this will be the end of our first evening, but we don't have the limit. Correct me if I'm wrong, Patricia. What time should we end? 10 o'clock. Okay, so we have a lot of time. My name is Maria. This is Paweł. Who we are? We are owners of LogicAI. This is a company who created Kaggle Days in cooperation with Kaggle. And we'd like to share this idea with you today. And what is Kaggle? I hope you all know what Kaggle is, but raise your hands if you know. Who knows what Kaggle is? All of you? Or somebody is lazy and do not want to raise hand? Okay, thank you. Okay, so I assume that everybody knows what Kaggle is, but again, this is a platform, the largest community of data scientists. Maybe some of you know how much people are there on the platform. Information from the last month. Wojtek, this is not fair. No, I know that you know.
I'm not sure, to be honest.
Sorry?
I'm not sure, but
Okay.
Around 2 million?
Yes, absolutely. There's 2 million data scientists on Kaggle, and this is the largest platform and the largest community of data scientists in the world. And the biggest. Do you know who owns Kaggle? Google does. Yeah. Excuse me? It's Google. It's Google. Google bought Kaggle more than a year ago, or roughly 2 years ago. Okay, thank you for the support. But before this, they also organize a lot of competitions. So it works like this: if you are a business and you want to, solve a data science problem or AI-oriented problem, you just use this platform, you publish it, you also encourage people by, giving some prizes, and the best teams win. They win the money, and they win also the name, because there are medals that you can collect, and also there are levels that you can achieve. You know, right? That the highest level is the Grandmaster. How many Grandmasters are there in the world? I know that you know. More than 100, around 120, I think, roughly. And Paweł is one of them. Okay, so this is about Kaggle, and why we are here and why we are talking about LogicAI, which is not connected to Kaggle, which is not a company owned by Google. We created Kaggle Days, and this is a wonderful information for us, because last month we agreed with Kaggle that we will become an official partner in organizing offline events, and we will be the sole partner. And the Kaggle events will go global, and there will be a lot of events, a lot of meetups all around the world. So I'm proud to say happened in Poland, and we came up with this idea. That's why we are starting here. But so we are LogicAI, and what we do projects for our clients, of course, in terms of data science. We came up with this Kaggle Days idea, and also we have a data science school. This is a European school. It's called Data Science Ocean. If you are interested, just follow our company and follow Data Science Ocean. If you want, I can tell you more during the beta time, but I think that you would all like to hear what Paweł has to say. But before this is about our company. Why we are here, why we are talking about the company on the meetup. We also are a sponsor of this today's meetup, and we are sponsoring pizza for you. And we came up with this catchy title, very, very old one. That we like pizza, we like data science, and this is what happens when LogicAI eats pizza. So if you want to join us, just let me know, take a card or anything, just contact us. But I want to share with you a story of Kaggle Days, how it happened. It all started in March 2018 when we came up with this idea, because our company was created by Grandmasters together with business specialists, business experts. And we decided that, people all around Kaggle, they know each other from their code, from their nicknames, but they all know each other online. They also create teams online, but they haven't ever met offline in one place. And that's why we decided that it has to happen. And because we are here in Warsaw, we decided that it will happen in Warsaw. And Kaggle said yes, Google said yes. And this event happened in May 2018 in Google Campus. So it was the first Kaggle Days in the world, and it was an amazing success. We did it to have the first day, because it was 2 days. On the first day there were presentations and workshops of one of the best grandmasters in the world. Also, maybe you know a name, Giba. Yeah, Roberto Tiderich is one of the best. Now he's the first in the world. I mean, the first Kaggler. But he won. I think that he's a record maker. Right?
When I counted the number of gold medals on Kaggle Days in May, and I think that Gilberto had like 1/3 of the medals. Among 15 speakers. So, like a force to be reckoned with, surely.
Yeah, so he's awesome. And he came to Warsaw, and he gave a speech and conducted a workshop. And this was the first day, during which, of course, there was a lot of fun and also party. And on the second day, what happened? A unique thing in the world. For the first time, there was a Kaggle offline competition that took 11 hours to be solved by the best teams. And of course, the best teams have won. They've won some prizes, but also we were recognized as the best, as the first teams that won Kaggle Days in the world. We also talked to Kaggle, and I will share something that is not revealed yet, information that is a bit confidential. I will share with you, because what Kaggle said. We are asked a question during Kaggle Days. Will there be a special list, a special record for recognitions, for the recognition of Kagglers who took part in this offline competition, because it was the first. And we said, we don't know, we have to check, we have to ask Kaggle. And Kaggle, a couple of weeks ago, they said, yeah, this is a wonderful idea. So probably there will be another list of Kaggle offline winners. So this is a wonderful information for all of you, if you want to attend Kaggle Days.
Another ranking to worry about.
Yeah, yeah, another ranking to conquer. Okay, so this what happened during the second day of Kaggle Days. I will share with you, I will show you the video. Oh, how should I do it? Can you help me? Okay. This is what happened. Can you hear it? There is a wonderful music in the background, but you have to imagine it. Uh-oh. Kaggle CEO was also there. Can we switch the presentation? Is it working? Yes. Okay, so maybe some of you were present during Kaggle Days, so you know it was awesome. And next Kaggle Days will happen. What I want to share with you is what happened today. Yes. Okay, so I think this slide is too early to show you, but I will tell it anyway. Okay, so what we prepared for today is an opportunity to win an awesome t-shirt, like this one, an official Kaggle one. I will also show the back. So if you want to do it, just use this Lido application. I hope you know it, and this is an opportunity to ask questions during Paweł's presentation. Not to interrupt the presentation, just use this to ask questions. So what you do is you enter this website, Lido. You should get it on your email also, so you can just click the link, put the code here in this window, and click join. And then there should be a screen showing that you can ask questions. Okay, and we'll answer them at the end of the presentation. Okay, is it clear? You know what to do. If not, we can help you. No problem. Yes, and what about the competition? There will be a possibility to win a t-shirt, like I told you before. Just to, wake you up before the presentation. Just for the warm-up, what should we do? Do you have enough strength to count? I think you do. Okay, so what to do to win a t-shirt? Choose a number, integer, between 0 and 100. And this number should be the closest to the half of the average of members given numbers given by all of us. I also translated it to Polish. Najbliższe połowy powinniśmy podać liczbę najbliższą połowę średniej sumy wszystkich podanych numerów. You'll get a card in just a sec. Can we spare the cards? Can you just use it and give one to all of you? Can you share? Do you have pens? Does everybody has a pen? And can share a pen? Oh my gosh! Do we have pens? Oh, we have 4 pens. Okay, wonderful, wonderful. But you can do it throughout the presentation, I think, and we'll collect the cards. So I hope this is clear. Just you take a card, take a pen, and you choose one number between 0 and 100, and this number should be, once again, the closest to the half of the average of numbers given by all of us. Yeah? Is it clear? Okay, so we'll collect the cards, and then we will do the counting. And at the end, after the presentation...
So you must sign the card.
Excuse me?
You must sign the card.
Yes, you must sign the card. Thank you, Paweł. I thought that was obvious, but yes, absolutely, sign the card. And then we'll choose the person who was the closest. And I think 3 people can win. If 3 people will be the closest, so we will share our t-shirts. And the solution will be given by after the presentation. Okay? Do you have questions?
Ask them on slide.
Okay. And also there is a survey. You can use this link. Also, it will be sent. It will be shared with you. Okay, it's already shared with you via email, so you should all get it. Just click it and tell us what you think, what you would like to have on the next Kaggle Days Meetups, on the Kaggle Days in general, what you think, who you are. And also, we will share another t-shirt with the people who use this link to fill in the survey. Okay? So, first of all, I will say once again, this is an application to ask questions during the presentation. There is a competition, and use the card to do it. And also there is a survey. Okay, so what next? Paweł, this is your presentation, so let's start.
Hi. Today I will talk about how to do well in Kaggle competitions. There are plenty of materials on the internet, so I won't be copying any other presentation. I thought that I want to do something that is original. I shared some materials at the end of the presentation which you receive, so later on you can check the additional materials. But what I'm telling you is like a novel material. Never seen anywhere. So the agenda is like this. First I will introduce myself, then we'll go through the general tips and tricks, then we will cover some examples of the competitions which I took part in, and I think that I can talk about some tricks that I found during these competitions, and you can use those tricks in your own competitions. And then there is Q&A time. So it's very, nowadays, if I can count how many times I put this picture on presentations, it's like, it's very good way to tell something about yourself. If you're competing, just to put how many competitions you've entered and what is your ranking. So like, it tells the story on itself. So over the years, I think I registered on Kaggle 7 years ago. I took part in more than 20 competitions, and I think My teams won about $100,000 in competitions. So I have 6 money prizes in competitions, which is, if you count, if there was a separate ranking on Kaggle, if that was only counting the money that people won, I would be probably in top 10. Because I focus on those competitions which have high prizes. There are three types of people in Kaggle: those who want to learn, those who want to put it in the CV, and those who do it for money. At some point in time, I did it like solely for the money. So what is Kaggle? It was already said that Kaggle was bought by Google in 2017, so not 2 years ago, as I said. It reached 2,000 million data scientists in the community, so it's a lot. And funny thing is that you can think that Google bought Kaggle, but it's not Google, but Google Cloud. And it's not even Google Cloud, but Google Cloud Machine Learning. So imagine such a big company that one of the departments of the company buys a separate website like this. It's amazing. And of course, Kaggle is known for hosting many competitions for those very known brands. This is like a normal cycle of the competition. The company invents a problem, then the teams form, and during the competitions we have a winner, and then hopefully the company can use the solution, right? Sometimes it's not true because some models are like 200 models, which are trained for 2 months. But yeah, I think that more and more companies are willing to go to Kaggle to find novel approaches to their problems. Okay, so here is the general tips and tricks. And the only way to become a truly strong Grandmaster is to do 100 models with 100 features in 100 competitions. And run 10 kilometers every day. If you get that reference, I can talk with you later. But seriously, there is this notion that Kaggle Grandmasters are hackers, you know. Like, this guy is very similar to Karol Spertas, if you know, NXGTR and Kaggle, those dark glasses. He's competing in every competition, you should know him. Okay, but seriously, when I started doing those competitions, the first thing I tried is to Google it. How to win a data mining competition. Data science was not even used so much as a phrase. It was how to win a data mining competition. And to my surprise, there were some results. And one of the guys was like this Mikhail Golovnia, who worked at the time at a company who had commercial software which was today's gradient boosted trees. Because at some point in time, there were only 2 implementations of gradient boosting. One was in our package called GDM, right? And the second one was this commercial software. So this guy shares some tricks, which I think there are 4 parts in his presentation. And he shares tricks like how to create features, how to do target averaging. So a technique used like formerly on Kaggle, and it was 7 years ago, right? And still these ideas are used today. So, and I can just read what he says. Like I can mimic even a Russian accent, but I won't do it. Over the years, I had a lot of exposure to our data mining tools, as well as a number of different techniques. And what I learned over the years is not just understanding which tool to use, but also understanding how to combine different tools together. So as well as learning a number of different tricks that you can do with the individual tools, is what makes the biggest contribution to your success. And I agree wholeheartedly with this, because I think the competitions are just a series of tricks. To do well in a competition, you have to have a bag of tricks that work for a particular competition. I can talk about those tricks later when there are examples. And here, for example, there are only like 60 views on his videos, and the content is very good. So this means that in order to do well, you must search and kind of ask the right questions, and there are answers. So this is another general tip. If you want to compete and you're serious about it, just click this button on the discussion forum. It's called it's subscribe button, and you will receive every message that is written on the discussion forum of this competition, and you must read it all because like it's a stream of conscience of this competition, and there are many different ideas, and you can use these ideas without telling them. It's very good. In the last competition, I used it, and I knew what everyone was saying in the room. Okay. Another thing, to win a competition, it's really like full-time work. You don't think about anything else. You can try, but it's really like you go to work, and on the bus you're thinking about the competition. In the work you're thinking about the competition, and after work. So you have to have very good, significant others, like my fiancée here. She was very considerate about this. She told me that okay, for this competition I will let you like sit for hours, but after this you will take me for a trip to Japan. Yeah, so that's the cost. So another thing I think is very important is not to do a competition on your own, because first thing, it's very boring. It's very boring because you don't have a person to talk with, and it's extremely important to have a person that you can exchange ideas with. So you can talk even if the person doesn't listen. It's very important because this rubber duck, right? There should be a rubber duck on every programmer's desk, just to talk to and share the ideas. And as you can see, I had only one competition that I did on my own, that I did well, and it was pure coincidence. Because there is a funny story about this competition. I stopped doing this competition 1 month before the deadline because I thought that I'm overfitting to the leaderboard, and I didn't know what to do. Either I stick with the overfitting to the leaderboard, or I stick with my validation, and I chose my validation, and I stopped doing this competition. And it's amazing because I jumped, I think, 50 places. Versus the private versus the public leaderboard. So this was a good choice. Another thing, you can of course join the community, and we can solve this competition together. Okay. Another very technical stuff. It's I love pipelines. How many know what are pipelines in scikit-learn, for example? Not enough. Yeah, it's a wonderful tool. Many problems are just tabular data, right? Not every problem is image and text recognition. Most of the times you have relational tables, and you just must deal with it. So in scikit-learn, there is no official way to do it. Before version 0.20. There is no official way to do this. And in the development version, in the next version, there will be an official way to handle this tabular data in scikit-learn. So it's very useful to know, and hopefully if you use pipelines, you used some ways to do this before this version, but I suggest you take a look at it, and it's very useful. one thing that I always do is I start with in a competition and I build some prototype. And this prototype can be written in like 4 hours or 5 hours. And then it's very good. But then I must completely rewrite it. And then it's it's worse. The model that the result is not is worse. It's the cycle that I continue every time I do the competition, because for some reason the prototype is always the best. I don't know if you experience this. If you try to fix something and you rewrite it, it doesn't work like before. And then you must understand what happened. So it doesn't work. But it's necessary to have this refactoring and have a framework to solve the problem. So don't just write the code, write code that write a tool to solve the problem. Another very important thing is to have a local validation set up, so you can mimic how the leaderboard works for your problem, so that you are sure that whatever you calculate locally is correlated with the leaderboard. So don't use Kaggle kernels to submit your solutions. Just you must have your own code and your own way to validate models. Yeah, I know people, for example, in the Mercari competition, people use those kernels to submit the solutions. And it was very bad because they didn't have enough machines to handle all the computation. Especially important is the fact that if there is a time in the competition, so the training and testing split is based on time, this is very tricky to deal with sometimes. And there are many competitions in which it was the case, and you can, for example, read the discussion after this restaurant recruit challenge. And many people share ideas how to deal with this kind of problems. Another thing worth mentioning is how many of you compete on Kaggle, like actively? How many people? Oh. So this is a very important thing. If you're competing, do you use version control system? Yes? Okay, so you're very good. I think it's very important to track your changes in your code, because sometimes you write for 10 days, you change something yet you don't know what worked or what didn't work. So it's very important. And for example, in the last competition, every commit that we made, if it was changing the logic of the models, included the validation performance and the leaderboard performance. So we can always go back to this version and fix whatever is necessary. And lately I've been doing some chess programming, and I found it's amazing because those chess programmers are very strict in this domain. Because, for example, here there is this very strong engine, and every commit has statistics about the commit, and every commit is like 50,000 games played between the version that is committed and the previous version. And all the changes that you can see are improvements, like statistically significant improvements in this engine. And I think this rigorous approach is very well followed, and you can also use something like this in your own code. So this is another example of it's a testing framework for a Stockfish engine. It is the best engine in the world. And what is amazing that there are 3 pages of possible improvements in the code. And you can see that among those 3 pages there is only one green commit that improves the engine. So you can see that if the performance is very good, it's very hard to improve. And you must spend a considerable amount of time to improve the engine or your model. So this is like a model framework for your problems. If you can do something like this, it would be amazing for data science problems. Also, very important is not to get stuck in your solution, because sometimes when you're trying to tune the parameters, every possible parameter in your model, and the changes are like very small, then it's time to like make a U-turn in your solution, right? Because it's normal that we get stuck into. I always think, if I'm not first, I always think what the first guys are doing that I'm not doing. Because I know it's only a series of streets. So you must only find those streets. And this is the difficult part, because to know whether a trick will work or not, you must try it. There is no other way, because you won't know beforehand about this. So here is, for example, a chart of our progress in the last competition, the Markari competition, which we won with Konstantin from Moscow. And here you can see this staircase shape plot, right? There is a sudden gain in improvement, and there is like this period when the improvement is smaller. So you can see a stairs like this. It's not a linear function of time performance. So every jump in the performance is some trick that we found. There is another thing that Piotr from my company noticed. We wasted a month of our life. Can you see why? The green the horizontal line is the second place performance. So we achieved second place performance a month before the deadline. So we could stop doing the competition 1 month before, and we would still win. Which was my calculation also. I always, like, when you see this brain that is telling you not to sleep because some thought that you are thinking about, my thinking was about the second team, always. And I always calculated how much time it took us to go from their result to the first place. Because it was not probable for me, so they can jump this kind of performance in one. For example, there was 2 weeks before the deadline. I didn't think they can jump so much in the 2 weeks. And have fun. Like on Friday, right? This is Friday. Okay, so right now there are a couple of competitions which I took part in, and some specific points which I think are important. The first competition that I took part in was this caravan competition, Don't Get Kicked. Kick is a bad buy. If someone buys a car and it turns out that the car is bad, it's called kick. So Don't Get Kicked means don't get fooled by buying a bad car. So this competition was all about suggesting which car is bad before buying it. So to understand the journey I came, it's important to know that before the competitions, I worked at a bank, and I wrote SQL queries for like 6 hours a day for many years. So the first competition I took part in, I used SQL heavily, right? Because this was the tool I knew the best, and it helped me to do well in the competitions, basically. Because I was pretty fluent in this, and I used some very awkward SQL Python merge to just pre-process the data, and when I look at it now, it's obviously awful, but it was the way I worked at this competition. The rest of this competition is really not important. The important part is maybe that I already used some kind of stacking. Right? I used 3 models to combine, and the improvement was there. The second competition, I already took 4th place, which was I was kind of hyped because it was my second competition and I already did well. So I was I was working at a bank, and I thought, okay, this is a thing that I can work on. Right? I found something that I'm good at. So I continued this, and this competition, the trick which we found in this competition was very specific to the challenge. So the main idea is behind this topic is to understand the problem. For example, in this competition there were bonds trading, and there were three types of transactions, like buy, sell, or transactions between the dealers. So transactions without the spread, right? So the prices for buy and sell were different, and the price of the trade was in the middle, like ideally. So I think the trick for this competition was to use a model that can convert prices between themselves. Like we constructed intermediate models that could convert the price from A to B, from B to C, and from A to C. Right? And this helped us to normalize the prices. If you want to calculate the average price of some previous transactions, it meant that we already had normalized prices to convert, and we didn't have to because it was a part of the noise in the competition, right? So, and also important thing that was involved in this trick was to understand that when the transactions are very sparse, so there are a few months between the transactions, to create this conversion model, you must take the transactions that are very close in time to each other. So we took transactions that are coincided in time, and then created this model that can convert one prices to another. So you don't necessarily have to understand what's going on in this type of trick, but it's important that you understand that it's kind of a domain knowledge that you must include in the model. Right? So every problem has its domain, and you must understand the domain. This was, I think, before Mercari, this was my best competition, I think, because it was a very big competition with a prize pool of $250,000, and we won second place and $50,000, and I had 75% share in this prize. So it was good money at the time for me, and I think I quitted my job after winning this. And I did nothing for 1 year. This is again important to understand that I wrote SQL queries like for a couple of years, and this pre-processing step involved processing more than 20 tables with data, with relational tables. So it was unlike the competitions that are normally presented, because there you had the raw data. And like more than 20 tables of raw data, and those tables were quite big, because for each airplane, for example, we had GPS coordinates for every minute of the flight. So you can already, and the flights were over United States, and over the United States there are like 70,000 flights every day. So it's a lot. The main trick that we found in this competition was referring to this local validation, because the problem was presented without any pre-processing made. You had to construct your own validation scheme to be able to predict which, when the airplanes which are currently in flight will arrive at the airport. So this was the aim of the competition, to predict when for example, let's freeze the time, and all the airplanes that are currently in air, we must predict when they will land. So we created artificial splits every 15 minutes. So for every flight we created snapshots in time every 15 minutes, and from this snapshot we calculated features that were referred to history of this flight, and the future, which is of course when the flight will arrive. Another important thing is to look at the errors, because in this competition the error was squared metric. So, and this was caused because of business. If the flight is delayed by 5 minutes, you don't care, right? And if the prediction is off by 5 minutes, you don't care. But it's off like by 2 hours. You almost wipe all the data science team, right? It's a very bad error, and the square error causes that such errors cause a big jumps on the leaderboard. So we went through all the errors that were caused by some manual errors. There were data that was, I think, entered manually, so we had to fix this before creating features. And another trick in this competition was that we created this two-step model. So first model, we had very good features. And the first model was only a linear model on those features. And this model would be at 20th place. This model with only linear features. And the second model was calculated on the residual errors between this simple model and the target. You know what is this residual error, right? So it's the difference between the first model and the answer. So to put it simply, the first model guessed some number, and the second model task was to fix the first first model error. So you have like a sequence of models, not models that are in parallel, but models that present a sequence, like boosting. Boosting is a sequence of models. And there were only 2 models involved, which is very surprising given that today competitions are won using hundreds of models. This is all I already said, so we had to manually review the errors. And second thing is that also the domain knowledge was very important. We constructed a table with maximum speed of each airplane type. And from this, you can easily calculate some boundary. Because if the distance to the airport is like 100 kilometers, and if the airplane is maximum speed is 500 kilometers per hour, that means that the airplane won't arrive at the airport earlier than 12 minutes, right? So something like this. So it's a very good boundary for the problem. And it was one of the features like this. So we calculated the remaining time if the airplane was as fast as the maximum speed of this airplane. So the next competition was the latest one from this year, from 6 months ago. I took part in this competition with Konstantin Lopukin, who is from Russia, and we did a very good job, in my opinion, winning this competition. An interesting part for this competition was that it was a code competition. So the models had to be calculated on the servers, on Kaggle servers. And you had only 1 hour to train the model and predict. So the aim of this competition was to construct fast models, right? Fast and accurate models. And as you can expect, if the competition is built like this, much time that is spent only on optimizing the code. So we had to optimize every possible part of the solution, starting from the transformation of the features and the modeling itself. And I think we tested all the deep learning frameworks to find the fastest ones for this particular problem. And we found actually that MXNet is the fastest, because it has the fastest implementation of add-on optimization that is working on sparse data. This is another important thing to mention, because all those models we tested worked on sparse neural networks. And it's also a very surprising thing, because people think that if you have 2,100 features, you cannot use neural networks, right? But if most of the features are 0, you can, because the first layer, the first input and the first layer are sparse computations. So the most of the calculation is not being done. The zeros are not taken into account when calculating the inputs, the activations, and the gradients. So MXNet was the only framework that calculated gradients in a sparse fashion. So this is very technical, but you can understand what kind of optimization goes into like running your code for 1 hour and winning the competition. So the code is available at my GitHub if you want to check it out. It uses heavily those pipelines that I mentioned. So you can, if you don't know what it is, you can check it out. At the quiz time, what do you think? What is the shortest piece of code that is sufficient to win a Kaggle competition? Some guesses? No? Wojtek.
1 line.
1 line?
Just a minute of time.
Some imports, right?
51.
51. Okay. It's worse than that. It's 83. 83 lines of code, which Konstantin, after the competition, took our 2,000 lines of code and took only the best parts of it, the parts that were causing the most improvement. And it turned out that he ended up with 80 lines of code script that I can show you. This. It's very funny because you start reading it, and before you notice, it's already over. So you want to read it more, but so you can check it out. You read it, and it's over. And it is sufficient to win the competition at this particular competition, and it only needs. Sorry, so this is like almost over before pizza. And I told you that I don't want to copy slides from other presentations. I think there are plenty of material that you can read in your spare time. And this is just like a snapshot of those materials. I think that this presentation is very helpful. It's overview of, I think, most of the feature engineering tricks that you can apply on Kaggle. It's like 75 slides. It's worth going through. It covers some numerical features, categorical features, text data, because text data is very often used in competitions. And the second thing is please follow the best Kagglers, like this guy, Owen Jack. He published, I think, almost all his winning solutions. It's already very good to know that to read it through. Just to know what he used, what kind of tricks he used, because the code he writes is very condensed. So you don't have to read like thousands of lines to understand it. His code is normally often very short. Also, there are Kaggle forums, and there is a website which Wojtek shared with me today. There is a website which summarizes the winning solutions from Kaggle forums, and you have one page in which you can find the winning the descriptions of the winners. So first place, second place, third place, all the write-ups are there with links. So it's also very important. If you plan to compete in some competition in some domain, just find a competition that was similar before and try to apply the same things that the guys were applying before. Also, there is a very good guide to create those ensembles of models. Like if you want to calculate hundreds of models, this is a place where you can find out how to combine them. There is also Reddit, machine learning subreddit, Kaggle Noobs Slack. I think it has 5,000 members, so many messages are exchanged that are about competitions. So, questions?
I think there are some questions that were asked using Seagull. I think there are 8 questions, but you still can ask more. But of course, there will be an opportunity just to raise a hand and ask your question in public.
Okay. So we have questions here.
Okay. Patricia, do you think we can?
Yeah, I think I can read the question. What is the ratio of time spent on using open source code with respect to your own coding over the course of competitions in which you participated? Average. This is a very interesting topic because there are people who write almost everything on their own. Like there is a guy, I think his name is Michael Yarr. He writes every problem, he writes his own neural network, and he's very happy about it. And he has amazing results. So his contribution to open source are probably 0. There are guys who use solely open source tools, so their average is 100. I think I'm in the middle because for example, in the last competition, in the Mercari competition, I tried to implement these neural networks that calculate themselves on sparse inputs. So until Konstantin proved me wrong, and he used some TensorFlow code to achieve the same thing. But he used a very obscure operators that multiply sparse inputs with the first level. Okay.
Paweł, can I interrupt?
Yes.
Because I think we didn't collect the cards, did we? The yellow cards that you were supposed to put the numbers on. Because we need some winners. We already have t-shirts. Okay, so, sorry.
So, the first question was anonymous. The second question, or the first one at this time, where to find people to work with on Kaggle competitions when you are a newbie? I think that right now the best place might be you. Let's wait. I think that nowadays it's good. When I started, I wrote on the Kaggle forum. So I'm looking for some person to compete with, like not compete with, but team up with. And many people answered, so I chose the people I want to work with. I think right now, like, even better would be to write on this Kaggle Noobs Slack. Right? So because it's a Slack for newbies, for people who are starting in Kaggle. And also, if you want to win, team up with the first person on the leaderboard. It's very good tip. Not just like mess around with 5th place or 6th place, just contact with the first place. I did it in the Mercari competition, but I was second, he was the first. So we had a pretty good chance to win after merging, I thought. Okay, so the next question is from Anna. Have you ever participated in the competition where the test data is much bigger than the training? How should one work with data to avoid overfitting? I think you cannot train on... okay, I see the point. I see the point of the question. I think the answer is that you must still have your local validation to implement, right? So don't use leaderboard as a like oracle. What models you use? Right? You must have your own validation. You must trust in this validation, which is even more important, because your local validation must be correlated with the leaderboard. So the test data size is not important, in my opinion, because you must, the test set is you can imagine that the test data is not there. You must use only train data and validate on your training data. And very rarely it is a good idea to use test data in your training. So this is my answer that don't bother with the test data size. Oh, why can't you properly handle the microphone? I don't know. Is it possible to win a Kaggle competition without high performance hardware? What do you use for training neural networks? Can you recommend any cloud or rather buying a machine? I think that the answer is that you need pretty good hardware to win a competition. In most cases, I knew guys with whom I teamed up that had machines that had half of terabyte of RAM at their disposal. So you must understand, if you are serious about this, probably what I did is just I list some servers with plenty of RAM. What is your strategy when trying to understand the domain knowledge of a competition? I think some competitions, I mean, you must read, of course, about the domain itself. I think there was a competition about mapping the dark matter, I think. And in this competition, the guy who won the competition used some formulas which he found in some research papers on this particular domain. So I think it's important to just read through most of the papers that are covering the domain. And this is my answer. Because every domain is different. For example, there are competitions that involve these physics simulations. I don't touch them because the theory behind those simulations is so big that I cannot deal with it. So my strategy would be to stray away from those competitions that you don't understand. Do you ever decide that your model is the best you can do before the deadline and just stop improving it? This was the case in the competition I talked to you about. I stopped doing the competition a month before the deadline. So yeah, I did decide something like this. And sometimes you have to choose your battles. If the competition is, you don't like the problem, then just don't do it. Because there is no profit in just forcing yourself to compete. Patrick asked, do you share your kernels, even those exploratory data analysis, before the results merge your final assessment? I'm not very famous for sharing my kernels because I don't write them. So I don't share anything. I can share some simple things, but not my solutions. How useful are the Kaggle forms taking into account that people compete? I think they are very useful because people can point out some mistakes in the dataset, some things that they tried or want to try. So, as I told you before, you must monitor the forms. What stacking libraries do you recommend to use? I write my own stacking always, so I don't recommend anything. Stacking is not so complicated, so you cannot write it in like 100 lines of code. So almost every competition I did was I rewrote all the stacking mechanisms because it was. I don't reuse a lot of code in my competitions. to start and understand Kaggle in depth. Take part in a challenge, do a tutorial. I think the best thing you can do is just straight like dive into the problem and don't do those tutorial competitions. Just compete for the prize because it's more motivating. I think if you have some deadline, you have some prize in the pool. It's more for me. It's more motivating. What happens once Patrick asked, what happens once you win top full place? Do you implement the model at sponsors company? Never. Never did anyone ask me to implement the model. I don't know why. Maybe they're too complex. And asked what kind of sparse neural networks do you use in Mercury competitions? Yes, I mean, if you go to my GitHub, to the Mercury solution, there is a link to the presentation, which we did in Moscow, but also in Tokyo, I think. We use normal sparse multi-layer perceptrons, so no deep learning part here, but some of the parts of the solution were like from this deep learning world, so Adam optimization is linked to deep learning, I think. Did you try to use capsule networks, right? In your experience? I think I didn't try it, but I think people tried and successfully in some competitions, even for text data. So this is a very novel idea to use these capsule networks for text data, not only for images. Do you use anything you learned from Kaggle competitions in your work business? There is a part of this knowledge that is like purely linked only to competitions, right? So I don't use competition knowledge at the company because I don't have anyone to compete with. I mean, there is no leaderboard, so there is no environment to use those ideas. But I think what I gained from Kaggle is this thing that when I have some margin that I can work with. I know that in one day I can build some model. If I really try, in 2 months this model will be much better. So the Kaggle competitions gave me this spectrum that I can work with. Right? So I think that I can build models rather quickly. And that they are decent, but if I really try, I can do it like I can really improve them a lot. So this is important. I thought about this before, to have this room that you can improve. If you're dealing with some problem and you're hitting a wall already, you cannot easily improve. But if you have some margin that you can work with, you can that you know that you can improve, it's much easier. Okay, so this is all. Thank you.